What's good, everybody? What's good, everybody? Listen, this is the Two Preachers in a Popcorn Box podcast. My name is Brian Mitchell. I am your host, and with me we have my co-host.
This is DT coming at you. I am the co-host for Two Preachers in a Popcorn Box. Get ready for a unique and extraordinary show. This is the first of many, so get ready because everything's gonna be unexpected. So here we go.
Absolutely. And listen, thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's podcast. Again, there are a couple of rules that you must follow, a couple of things that we are asking you guys to do. The first thing is if you are on Facebook, to make sure that you like the fan page Salty Buttered Crew. All right, Salty Buttered Crew. And then secondly, make sure that you follow us on IG, Two Popcorn Preachers Pod, as well as on YouTube, Two Popcorn Preachers as well. If you have any questions, any podcast ideas, make sure that you submit them to our email address as well, which is twopopcornpreachers@gmail.com. Now, listen, guys, again, this is the initial episode of this podcast. And so basically what this podcast is all about is me and my boy DT Derrick Thomas. We have two primary passions. One of them is movies. Second one is ministry. We love the Lord and we love some popcorn. So we're bringing those two things together to have conversations around some of the things that we love. And so today's episode, the main crux of today's episode is the movie Creed. All right. Creed is it was released in 2015, directed by Ryan Coogler. This was his first second major project actually. He started with Fruitvale Station, and then in this particular movie, Creed, stars Michael B. Jordan, as well as Sylvester Stallone, and together they did a pretty great job, man, with this movie. And so we're gonna break it down on today. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the title of this episode is "What's in a Name," right? How there are times and situations where you can walk into life out of the womb with expectations that you have no control over, right? And so let's kind of talk about that point initially, Mr. Thomas. What is it like living with those types of expectations from the jump?
It can create a couple of challenges simply because if you have that, first of all, to live up to whatever name that is, and secondly, to not damage that name, which is it's a lot to put in both of those, because it's very, very important to know that when you represent a name, you have to live up to that name. And blemishing that name not only messes you up, but it also messes up future generations because now they have to live with what blemish you put on that particular name. So it's very important that we live through, and I mean, you love the way you chimed into that. Since we will be talking about Creed, it has a lot of things wrapped around in that particular, title that we're going to talk about, that it covers so much. And is that it covers a lot. It just covers a lot. I don't want to jump ahead of anything because I feel like I was about to before I decided to slow-mo myself. But we have a lot to talk about. I just think. I mean, Creed is the topic as far as the movie is concerned. I just got a lot to say. So, I don't want to jump ship. I'm going to let the host, and I'm the co-host, let us rock this out. But we got a lot to cover, but I want to be able to cover a lot because from beginning of Creed all the way to the end, for me, one of the most phenomenal movies on the planet because of the chemistry of the actors, the way it was portrayed, how it was set up. And then for those of us, I'm going to say myself, who are true Rocky fans. Because I watched them from, and I can still watch them like they brand new to me. I'll sit up there and watch them. I'll have popcorn can and the whole nine, telling everybody to be quiet. I kick folk out watching Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So
Really?
to yeah, I mean really, like nonstop. I mean, I'm a Sylvester Stallone fan. I'm Rocky, Rambo. Yeah, I'm old dude, so forgive me.
Okay.
Not. But yeah, it's a lot to cover, but to see how that all that era of what he did now transitioning from Apollo Creed that did so well in 1 and 2, we get the opportunity to see what levels that Michael B. Jordan can do with Adonis Creed at
Mhm.
that point. So I'm not gonna say too much right now. So I'll let B. Mitchell handle it.
Well, so it's interesting that you bring up Sylvester Stallone. So he is an interesting case as an actor. First of all, um, he is one of the few actors who has two separate franchises that he's
Correct.
the cornerstone. Right?
Right.
You brought up Rambo, and you brought
Mm-hmm.
up Rocky. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How like that's crazy. That's crazy for you to have long standing franchises that after 15, 20 years after the last one, that was like, you know what, let's bring him back and let's try it again.
Right.
Let's do some additional things. Now, personally, I think that the last Rambo movie and the last solo Rocky movie, we need those. We need those
You might not have
because
seen
but
those.
no. Here's the thing. Like I think that most franchises they squeeze all of the lemonade or all of the lemon juice out of lemons, and then they don't go and like get a different fruit.
Right.
They'll get like stronger, something stronger to squeeze with, and try to get every little last ounce of stuff out of it. And that's why coming into Creed, I was very, very skeptical because I personally was tired of Rocky
Really.
because I was like, man, look, the last movie he was in was just like it was a snooze fest. I was like, I already know what's gonna happen. I already know that this is gonna be a situation to where he's gonna face a foe that's super formidable, and also that it's gonna come down to the last couple of scenes. Um, and so that was my thing coming into the movie. But what were and we can go ahead and dive into some of the other things that you wanted to talk about when it comes to some of your highlights. But what were your kind of key moments or key concepts that you learned in this movie?
I mean, from beginning to end, multiple things that are involved with Creed, like bits and pieces, like from his intro, um, and I'll just jump maybe 20, 15 minutes or 30 minutes into the movie when he had
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to meet Miss Bianca,
Yeah.
the young lady that portrayed, the girlfriend or the, significant other at that time. There was a lot of things that happened with that, just differently, because you didn't, of course, we in Iraqi we got to see the love interest, but to develop what we saw throughout the movie to build, that relationship and build the relationship with Rocky and build the relationship to overcome things in the ring. There was a lot of relationship building when it came to Rocky, when it came, well,
Right.
excuse me, to Adonis.
Mm-hmm.
So even in that situation, when he wanted to, he was fascinated by her. And so the first thing he did, he asked her out. Well, they had a date. He said it wasn't really a date. He didn't want to make it a date, whatever the case may
Right.
be. But here's the thing that really stood out to me. She had progressive hearing loss.
Yeah.
And he did not allow that challenge to limit him from allowing for the relationship. He never stopped that. He never stopped that. So it's progressive hearing loss. So it's really a challenge to know that will you overcome somebody's defect? in order to
Hmm.
build.
Yeah.
Because,
Let
let me
me
tell
say
you one
something on
more.
that.
because
Oh, go
because
ahead.
God can build on our defects and move forward. It's us who has the flaw
Yeah.
that God can love us past. So does your desire overcome the flaw or the defect in another or in a situation for you to continue to develop? Do you let that stop you? Or what? Go ahead. What do you want to say?
Well, no. So you bring up relationships, and relationships was something that was very, very key, even from the very, very beginning, right? Like right when he was introduced to Miss Rashad's character, right?
Yeah,
How the first thing he said, he was like, I don't have a father, right?
right,
He had um, all of these ideas about family and about abandonment because he had gone from foster home to foster home, and you mentioned how many times whenever we're in relationships, how there's always a flaw. There's
right,
always some type of, I'm not going to call it baggage, but it's always something that you'll have to either accept or work with that person on improving. And 99 times out of 10, it's something that is a major like issue. It's something is nothing that can be easily brushed over, right? It's something
right,
that has to be addressed. Um, and so when you start there, and then you look at and I guess I don't want to go too far, but yeah, you mentioned the relationship with Bianca, and how it did not matter to him that she had hearing loss, because it's crazy how you can have how two people can have these own individual like flaws, but
right.
yet commit to say, hey, you know what? I'm with you regardless. And also, isn't it wild that she was an amazing singer with that hearing issue?
Right, right.
That was crazy.
And that I think that was the other thing is that you don't allow your deficiencies to block you. It was so
Hmm.
many things that attached to that. And again, I mean, even though we're talking about movies and we correlate these things in life, do you allow your limits to limit you? Do you allow
Mm.
the thing that has put or caused you? And sometimes here it is, some of the things that are defects in our lives, depending on your character, you begin to work harder to overcome those things.
Right.
And so she did it. She learned to do it. She played music exceptionally loud, so she can get the whole vibe of what was going on. And so it was exceptional to know that she can overcome that adversity and then be challenged because she didn't let that stop her from singing, from performing, from
Right.
living her life. And no, so it is that thing that we have to overcome. And so it's important. See, here it is. Let me tell you something that I learned. It says we have progressive hearing loss when it comes to God.
Oh yeah, we do. But go ahead and break that
We
down.
have
Go ahead.
progressive, yeah, I'm just because that's what we do. Because when we're so full of ourselves, we progressively pull away from the words of God. We move away from what needs to be effective in our lives, and we stay with what we think is beneficial for us. And so that
Hmm.
causes us to stumble and fall and get in bad situations and bad anything. So it's really, really important that even through our progressive hearing loss, that we learn how to overcome and allow people that want to help us. And so that was early on in the relationship. I mean, in the movie with his introduction to her, with Michael B. Jordan's role playing Adonis, is that
Hmm.
see, the thing was her deficiencies he knew about. His deficiencies she didn't know about
Right.
until later.
Right.
So I mean that's significant. And so do we? And so we I want to say something. So I'll say this. So I'm gonna be jumping all over the place. Once she realized he wasn't being honest with her, she was about to let him go because he wasn't being truthful. He had to
Yep.
be truthful about his deficiencies so she can actually accept him as a whole. The loving thing about God with us is that he knows our deficiencies and he yet still loves us unconditionally without any break in the relationship,
Yeah.
without saying, if you don't tell, I'm no longer here, because he knows it. So, man, I'm telling you, I mean, as I guess as two preachers, I keep my mind open, and that's why
Hmm.
speaks so much to me because there's so many things attached to this. A bunch of scenes that we're gonna get into. So I didn't want to stop you, but go ahead. You were saying?
No, you good. So another scene that I thought was interesting is he is fighting by night, right?
Yeah.
And barely existing during the day at the beginning of
Right.
the movie, right? Like he's you can see the dual lives that he's trying to live through. And so he makes up his mind. He said, you know what? I am called, I'm destined to be a fighter. And so I'm just gonna, take this big leap of faith and just go for it, right?
Right.
Now, what do you do once you've made that decision to, step out on faith? The important thing is to choose your corner well,
Good.
because the people that he thought would support him, that would train him, that would push him, and that would see the vision that he saw in himself, they didn't.
Right.
Like the family that was connected to his father, and his father's trainer, his son became a trainer, right? And so naturally you would think, hey, these people came up with me, right? They know my people, and so you would think that they would be the ones to follow, or to keep that connection going. However, I don't disagree with the trainer's son, not wanting to train him,
Right.
right? I don't disagree with that, because you can want something so bad but not really research it, and not really, you can have blind tunnel vision, right?
Right.
About your dreams, about your goals, and but you don't see the hills and the dips and the problems that are ahead of you. But the people that he was going to, they already knew. That was like, man, you think you are as great as you think you are, but you're really not. But how many times do we not heed the advice of wisdom, and we get left right to the dome when we down on our face breathing,
Right.
embarrassed because we didn't put ourselves out there too soon.
Right. Right. And I know that scene was. I'm gonna go to a scene, couple of scenes before then. Is when um Adonis, aka Michael B, met with Rocky, and he says, "I want you to train me." Or he started off with saying, he said, "Oh, can I get some tips? Can you at least
Yeah,
give me some tips on what I need to do?" So he sat down and he talked with him, and so Rocky wrote down a couple of things that he could do to kind of help him improve his game, his
yeah,
boxing game. So he did that, and so they moved forward. But it was later when Rocky went to the grave and visited Paulie and visited Adrian, and so the question, multiple questions, is like, what are you hanging on to help you propel you to your future? Because Rocky kept going back to the grave because of Adrian, the ones that he loved and the ones that's no longer here. Paul says, "I press towards." At some point, Rocky thought, okay, maybe I'm wasting my time in this graveyard because they can't talk back to me. And so now he moved forward to go search out Michael B. I love it. I'm
yeah,
telling you, he went to go
yeah,
search out Michael B. And when he searched out Michael B, Mike was already training his way. Let's make sure this. Let me tell you this. He was training his own way. And that's what we do. Since we hadn't read the Bible as older people, as young people. So we fight the best way we know how. We fight with our
hmm
flesh. We find the most convenient way to get into any type of, when we get into a ring of fighting or debating or any, the only way we know how is the way we've learned from mistakes and mishaps. And see, Donnie, aka Adonis, Michael B, in this part, he was so used to fighting his way, but he wanted to actually stop fighting in, because it's a whole bunch. Michael B was Adonis was fighting in Mexico, and this scene
right.
happened later, tying all it together. So when he ran into Rocky, and Rocky, he finally convinced him to train him, and Rocky started to train him. The thing that amazed me the most is when they got to training, and Rocky was showing him particular things about the jump rope, about the speed bag, about ring presence, and all this other stuff. He put him in front of a mirror. Loved it. This is my favorite
Yeah.
part. Put him in front
Yeah.
of a mirror, and he says, first of all, get your stance together. In other words, get your life right.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the way. And then he said, this is the way you get your life right. He says, throw a jab. He said, okay, now throw one to the ribs. Now throw a headshot. He said, what do you see? He says, every time I throw a punch, he's throwing a punch right back at me. And this is the news, or this is the wisdom that Rocky gave Adonis. And I don't want to mess it. I don't want to mess it up. Let me try to make sure I get this. He says, he said, when you see the punch coming, I want you to either block it, slip it, or get out of the way.
Yeah.
So guys, and to tag that on the scripture, Bible tells us in Romans 7:23 that there's a warring in our members. There's a constant fight. So the biggest fight that we have is with our flesh. So when our flesh comes and we get ready to fight it, it already knows our strategy. It already knows how to defeat us. It already knows how to beat us. Now, since we have a new trainer, since Rocky is the new trainer, I've been training myself for all these years. So Rocky comes in, I've asked for help because here it is. I see I want to be better, but I can't be better because I'm so used to trusting me. I'm going to trust somebody that at least my father was a friend with and had fights with. So he brought in somebody that he knew was a winner. Stick with the Lord. He asked somebody that was already a winner how to win. But the first thing he taught him was how to defeat himself. Man, I love telling a little.
And here's the thing that was amazing, right? Of course, when you're looking at training, many of the things that are taught in training, you are not able to instantly apply to the current situation around you, right? So it's important that Michael B, that Donnie, that Adonis was able to get that principle instilled in him, because, and I know we're jumping back and forth, but if you go to the fight at the end and he's getting tagged up and he comes back to the corner and Rocky says, it's you versus you.
Right.
Because he was talking about, man, he's fast, man, he's long, and Rocky was like, nah, it's you versus you. Get him out of the way.
Right.
Get him out of the way.
You again, but in order to get him out of the way, he had to be trained to get him out of the way. He had to first realize that he was fighting himself. Early on in that scene, he had to learn that. And if nobody shows you your worst enemy is you, you'll never defeat you. And you'll always have with you. You'll always have to lose to you. So
say that one more time.
Yeah. But it's important that we realize that the toughest fights are the ones we have in the mirror. The toughest fights are the ones that we have behind closed doors. The toughest fights are the ones that we have when we're so comfortable with the flaw of us that we're not willing to become more complete with the right training. So the first thing we got to do, even with, and I'll tag back on to, if I got the improper communication, I'm going not correctly fight. And so Michael B was dealing with the fact that his mother was gone, his father was gone. There was miscellaneous things that were happening that was, not appropriate. And so in his life, he carried that on and he learned how to fight. Here it is, from a place of anger and bitterness and individuality. I'm trying to not be my dad. I'm trying to live my own life. I don't want to have the attachment of Apollo Creed to my life. I don't want to remember the loss of my father that I never had. I don't want to remember the loss of a mother I never really got to know. All of these things are just like us. I don't remember the struggle that got me to this place. I don't want to, all of these things you're running away from. And really, in your weakest moments is when you have your toughest fights in it. He was fighting Adonis was fighting in the ring and out of the ring. And Rocky was telling him in that scene, I'm working on you to teach you how to fight in both places at the same time. So he learned to, after that, and that was just the first, to defeat yourself in order for you to get wealth, in order for you to get help, in order for you to win one fight. That's just one fight. He had to defeat himself. He had to train. He had to get comfortable with taking, now we transition. We transition from Rocky training you to, you mentioned earlier, until the introduction. Here it is. Also in that, he pulled him out of the light of his upcoming enemy. That's what he did when he got ready to train him in the new ring. He said, you know what? I don't want them to see us anymore since you got to fight him. There are people that are watching how you fight that you got to separate from. You got to separate from situations and people that keep an eye on your ability to fight because they want to defeat you. And so if they stayed in that same arena or that boxing gym, that guy who he fought and beat in round 2, the young guy, if he stayed there any longer, he would have never won that fight. So that's when Rocky took him to introduce him to people that can benefit him, that can help him. And then I love the part that you mentioned. He put him in the ring with the young cat, and he says, and they introduced each other, was nice and friendly. But then when it got time to fight, the young guy, who was just as tough as Mike was, decided to challenge him in the ring. When they fought, they did what they needed to do. They were practicing boxing. They were getting their familiar. And so that young man also challenged Mike how to fight.
Yeah.
And so it gave him a different way of feeling, because now, here it is, he checked his arrogance with his fist. If you never paid attention to that, he checked his arrogance with his fist. You think you bad. You think you this, that, and the other. Well, let me show you. And then when he started his anger took over. Old boy said, you in my gym. This is my house. And Michael B. Jordan was getting angry. And here it is. The voice of God said, wait, whoa. He says, be angry and sin not.
Yeah.
Whoa. Put a pause on it. Let you chill out. We're trying to help you win. So let's get this, clear your mind. And so when he went back in the ring, he needed that wisdom from Rocky to get back to fighting, to training. And sometimes even training hurts. So I'm telling you, Creed is a multi. I don't want to talk too much. Go ahead, because I'll take it all over.
You're good. So in the secluded, the hidden gym, right? There's a leadership principle that's in that particular scene as well. Many times whenever we are following people, whether it be pastors, parents, it's a wise parent that knows what they can do, but it's an even more wise parent, a wiser parent that knows what they can't do, right? Because Adonis Rocky tells Adonis, no, I was right. Adonis tells Rocky, hey, I came here for you. Like, why are there these other people here? Like, I came here for you. And Rocky is like, listen, these guys can do what you need to do. I can't do this. I know my lane and I know my influence, but in order to sharpen your skills, in order to get you to the place that you need to be, you need to listen to these people. And many times we have, first of all, we think we know more than we actually do. And then we have this unhealthy affinity toward people and toward who we think they are. And, and then we get mad if they do something or give us advice that is opposite to our expectations. Right. So it's important that we, first of all, don't over glorify somebody. Right. And secondly, be wise to listen to the counsel, especially if they are telling you to go to other people that they trust. Because do you trust the voice of that person? Do you trust who's backing them up? Because again, Rocky had years of history. He had championships. He had all of these things that basically was his clout. But Adonis went in with his own thinking of, hey, this is how I want to be trained, not, and then almost kind of spit in Rocky's face, like, nah, this is not how it's gonna work. And Rocky's like, so you trusted my name, you came to my name and my history, but when it's time to actually do the work, you don't want to go through the process I've set up and organized. So we got to humble ourselves, and really that's one of the big points of this movie as well is
Yeah, yeah.
humility.
Humility is definitely a part of that of Creed. The other two things, it was two scenes, but I'll talk about one. The Bible tells us to be anxious for nothing.
Hmm.
Pete was the father and the trainer for the young guy that Adonis first fought.
Hmm.
Prior to that fight, while Adonis and Rocky were training, in the midst of training, the trainer said, "You know what? You want to fight?" He asked Adonis, "You want to fight?" He said, "You want to fight, my boy?" He said, if you lose, if you get down to him, he said, first of all, ask him how you weigh. He said, "How much you weigh?" He said, "I'm weighing about 180." He says, even if he say, "Fine, you weigh 180." He says, "Get down to 175 and I'll let you fight, my boy." Adonis automatically said, "I'm about it. Let me get it. Let's with it." Wisdom kicked in. Wisdom told, which was Rocky. He said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." He says, "I do the talking, you do the fighting."
Yeah.
I,
Come on. Come on.
I love I love it. I love it, which means sometimes we need to let God do the talking. Stop wasting your energy, and so we can be prepared for the fight. Adonis was not ready. His anxiousness and arrogantness, because he was so eager to get into the ring to prove himself. Rocky
Oh,
was
I
going
like.
to stop himself from hurting himself and also messing this opportunity up to prove himself later. Rocky says, "I do the talking and you do the fighting." So God sometimes wants us to be quiet and
Yeah,
not
man.
say a word in order for us to save our energy for the fight that's upcoming. Keep training, keep quiet, but keep training. If you ain't training like you should train, then I'm gonna need you to train. Check your wisdom. If you got a lot, because see, here it is. Adonis had knowledge, but it wasn't wisdom.
Oh yeah.
He had not based upon his experience from fighting in Mexico before he started to train with Rocky. We get comfortable with our experience and think we're going to win every fight because we won the last 16. If you're in any connection with the Lord, sometimes you have to be willing. And here it is. The voice of reason came in, and even though his desires was bigger than his ability to win, Rocky came in, wisdom came in to shut him down. Here it is. Adonis could have said, "You know what? I don't need you anymore. I want to fight anyway." Us be the wisdom in the what's being told to us in order for us to be better people. And so
Mhm.
Donnie had to keep training. And so sometimes we have to keep training. We have to keep living in order for us to move forward. And here it is. If you open your mouth at the wrong time, you will invite an enemy that will defeat you.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm telling you, there's a yeah, so there's a lot of things in Creed that we can apply to our life that we gotta be effective. And here it is. Reason why I love Creed, because the entire movie is a journey of training to overcome self and the level of adversity in you, in others, and in your craft. Because
Yeah. And just to
yeah,
piggyback on that, there's a reason why there's weight classes.
right, 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 right,
There's a
right,
reason why there's
right,
weight class
right.
because you can't automatically just jump to the heavyweight class if you have a lightweight frame.
There you
You
go.
might think you might think you can handle that because you see yourself as this mighty person. You've whooped everybody in the lightweight round. But
Right,
just because you've conquered this one hill doesn't mean that you are able to conquer the mountain. There's
correct.
distance between the hill and the mountain, and there's a trek that you have to go, and a trek that you have to climb in order to get there.
Right.
Yeah, man,
So
good stuff.
I mean, yeah, good stuff. It's definitely significant. Is that we have to kill an anxious spirit,
Hmm.
because having an anxious spirit will get us caught up in a lot of fights. Look, an anxious spirit and a quick mouth is the quickest way to lose.
Bop bop 2 times. Yes,
Right.
sir.
I'm talking about. So you have to. I'm telling you. I don't care what anybody say. Creed for me will always do it because there's so many things that you can apply if you're open minded. And that's the other thing, is that Adonis, when he desired to win, he had to be submissive. Even and we go back to now when he started to get trained and he was in the ring and started to develop and started to develop and get better, he had to be submissive to the other trainers that Rocky just wisdom chose to put in his life to develop more than one area. And here's the thing that blessed me. He had a stitch man before he had a fight. He had a stitch man. So the stitch man was there to remind you, you will get wounded. I will heal you, but you will get wounded. Your wounds teach you how to dodge better. Your wounds teach you how to position your life better. Your wounds teach you how to stand better and how to duck a punch when you see it coming. So I need a stitch man to sew me back up or to bleed me when my eyes are swollen and I'm beaten up all the time. So everybody needs a stitch man in their life. So that blessed me. So he introduced them all the people. And so finally we got the win. And this is the thing that blessed me also in Creed. It says after the win, and they were so excited, Adonis said, what we gonna do next? And the scene that jumped straight to that, they all on the couch laid
knocked out. Absolutely.
They all on the couch laid out. So what does that say? After every fight you have, you need rest. You can't keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. You need rest. Without rest, you're gonna lose. You're not gonna be able to comprehend well. Matter of fact, you won't even land the punch right correctly, and you won't have the ability, or you don't have the endurance to last for the rest of the fight. So you need rest because your mind and your body needs rest. So we transition from that position, from the rest position. Here it is. We enjoying that win, and then the next challenge comes. Yeah. That's when the dude from Liverpool, Dad says, this is the fight I need you to win. This is the fight. This is the easiest fight. And this is the challenge. And I'm going to get to this. I've been wanting to get to this. They finally have a meeting. The trainer from Liverpool, Rocky, and Adonis all sitting at the table. And so the dude says, you can have this fight. You can actually have the fight with the number one fighter in the world right now. The only thing I need for you to do is fight in your father's name. I was outdone. I was done. Donnie told him, what if I don't want to fight in my dad's name? What if I don't want to fight in the Creed name? He said, well, you don't fight. So I'm going to give you some time to think about it. As Christians, we want to go in our own name, and we refuse the name of Jesus until it's too late, until we need something. But it's never too late when we call on God. But it was so automatic that we want to be who we are and deny Christ access. We want to be who we are, but we don't want to give glory unto the Lord. We have to submit unto the name, because I'm telling you, going into the name of Jesus, the Bible says every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. So if that's the power of the name, I'm going to go in. I want to go into that name, because if I'm fighting, I want to fight in that name. Because here it is. The Bible tells us if I fight for the Lord, I'm glorifying him and the Son. So Adonis had to learn that it was okay. And it was amazing part about it. Bianca convinced him it was okay to accept his dad's name. And she gave him this little speech, and she said, "You're a fighter, right?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You're Apollo Creed's son, right?" "Yeah." He says, "Well, the name belongs to you." He said, "You got it right. You got a point." So the name belongs to us. His name belongs to us. So again, we have to be able to understand that this is the reason why Donnie said I didn't want to go in my dad's name, because I was going to be in fear of losing.
Oh yeah. So there are certain arenas that I can't get into on my own name.
Right.
He literally would have stayed at that same position as Donnie Johnson. And Donnie Johnson is cool. But Donnie Johnson can't get the invite to fight on the biggest stage for the world championship. Donnie Johnson can't do that. Brian Mitchell can't do that. Right? Brian Mitchell is cool. But if I go with the banner of Jesus in front of me, Donnie goes with the banner of Creed in front of him. And that name opened up doors for him that Johnson never would have opened for him.
But see, everybody wants to challenge, but ain't nobody winning against the name. So you do know Since even I'm just saying, you get beat up, you get scarred because here it is. When they started fighting, he had the tights, he had the boxing pants on. I mean, the shorts on, the whole nine. I mean,
Mhm.
when you go to fighting, what do you dress? Do you have on the full armor of the Lord when
Mhm.
you go into battle? When you're trying to get this accomplished? And so he went in cold, confident in the name. We got to
Yeah.
go in confident in the name. And here it is, your enemy that has a stretch that his arms a little longer than yours. He might be a little bigger than you. But the name you go in, you might get bruised, but at the end of that fight, you win.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, the journey of a Christian is the journey of creed. From me, from beginning to end, from the levels of communication, finding a different way to communicate. When he found out that Bianca had progressive hearing loss, she was teaching them sign language. We can't communicate the same way when we are children of God that we used to communicate using different words and terms. Now we got to change the way we speak. Sometimes we don't use our mouths. So it's different interpretation. From that scene all the way through the end, it was a journey that he had to change. There was change
Yeah.
throughout that. There was change to break down the walls of his heart with her. There's a change to overcome adversity within himself. There's a change of arrogance that he built. There's a change of how you fight battles. There's a change of allowing people to come into your life to be beneficial to you. There is change of fighting you and winning the different battles of your flesh. There was change of being humble. There was change when it comes to rest. There was change when your new level of a new chapter of enemies comes your way. It's a
Mhm.
submission of how you live and overcome. It's being used by God and not being afraid of the failure, but being grateful that you can have the name of Jesus to go into and winning the fight even after being scarred because you realize I got to get me out the way in order for me to win, to get the glory. So I'm just saying, Creed as a whole, I think I ain't got nothing else. What you got?
No,
So
listen, man. That's you've covered it all, man. You covered from the beginning to the end. And the one thing I love about the Rocky movie,
wonderful,
the first one.
wonderful, wonderful show.
Say it again.
Uh-huh.
Say that again.
think it's just go ahead.
Oh, okay. So yeah, one of the things that I loved about the first Rocky movie, as well as Creed, is that
Oh no, you good. Go ahead.
all of this, all of this preparation, all of this preparation led to him not necessarily winning the battle, but it's the lessons that were learned, right? It's the lessons that build character and that leads to future victories and that leads to future development and growth. All right. So listen, last segment of today's episode is the our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Chadwick Bozeman, who passed away um, earlier this month, last month. His impact on our culture as Black people was definitely more far-reaching than I think people understood, and more far-reaching than what um, we understood. I think as people, because Black Panther was a tough role to master. They did a phenomenal job of the entire landscape of Wakanda, of the prince becoming a king. Like, as far as a introduction to a superhero, that movie was phenomenal. And with all of the various um roles that Chadwick has played, from Marshall to James Brown to Jackie Robinson. He took those roles as a badge of honor and pride to honor the legacy of Black people in this particular um, country. And so we just want to honor and just say, we thank him for putting us on the highest stage and doing everything with excellence. You got anything you wanted to say when it comes to Mr. Bozeman? No? Okay. Cool. Cool beans. So listen, guys. This is basically we're going to call it a wraps for this first episode of the two preachers in a popcorn box. Now, next week's movie, the next episode's movie is Project Power. All right, Project Power is the movie. It's on Netflix right now with Jamie Foxx being the lead in that episode. Make sure that you check out that movie next Sunday, 6 o'clock will be the same time for the live. All right. Again, the rules for this episode and the ones moving forward. Make sure that you follow the our fan page on Facebook, Salty Buttered Crew. Make sure that you go to IG and follow us on Two Popcorn Preachers Pod. If you have any ideas, any show topics for movies that you want us to review or themes or anything like that, you can email us at twopopcornpreachers@gmail.com. All right. On behalf of my co-host, Derrick Thomas, I am Brian Mitchell, and this has been two preachers in a popcorn box podcast. You guys have a great, wonderful day, and we will see you later.
Be blessed, people.